come. That's totally up to you. We just would say when we say so.
Yeah, I feel like let's just maybe get started. That's just my thoughts, but it's if you want to wait, we can.
Okay. Do we have, let me see, because you know that the people off the top of your head, how many participants do we have now? Do we have like about 8 to be able to do 2 breakout rooms?
Let's see. Sorry, it's hard because I have to switch back on the phone.
1, 2.
See.
Because I'll have to look at my notes first. Vincent, 3, Rita, 4, 5, Nikita, 6. I am counting 6. Is that correct?
Sorry, I'm just trying to figure out how to get back to the list of participants here on the phone. Okay. 1. Yeah, I'm just counting 6.
Okay. And then the facilitators are Laggy, Alicia, Caroline. That's 3. Are you a facilitator too? Or you are in a different role?
I think me and Carol are kind of in a different role.
It's a different, okay.
Primarily just, working on the toolkit. The other facilitators will have more roles like within the actual, within the organization doing other things. But me and Carol are just primarily doing the toolkit.
Okay.
So there's 1, 2.
And I'm not a facilitator.
Yeah, sorry, Nikita. I think there's been a bit of miscommunication. I don't think you need to be here today.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will take this opportunity then and get ready for my doctor's appointment.
Okay. See ya.
See you guys. I'll touch base with you, Ash, later.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I think, sorry, let's just, is it working now? Okay. Okay. I'm just waiting for people. There's not very many.
Were you able to figure out the breakout room?
Okay. Can everyone? Okay. Yeah, I think, Rita, let's just get started and I'll continue to let people in.
Okay. I was asking, were you able to figure out the breakout rooms?
I see a link here at the bottom. This thing is echoing. Can you turn off, get the headphones away from here? For breakout rooms.
I'll help you for breakout rooms.
Okay, yeah, I think you can help me, but it looks pretty simple.
Okay. Yeah, we would need it for after the break anyway, so there is some time to get into it, but I just thought to ask.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, so we can get started then.
Ashley, are we recording the session?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Rita, can you hear?
I heard my name.
Yeah, it's me, Nketi. Yeah, I was just asking, when recording, does it record the breakout sessions as well, or just the main session?
I think it's the main session.
Just the main session, okay.
Yeah, at least that's what I know, unless somebody knows different.
Yeah, that's what I thought as well, but it's okay. I just wanted to check. And second, I'll just a quick reminder for the business.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Well, of course, that was going to be my first thing to talk about anyway, so I don't know if we can just get it off.
Yeah, we can move it till, let's say, I don't know, after maybe just before a breakout room or something, so that we can get the input from as many many of the youth as possible, if they're, let's say, coming in later. But it's up to you.
I feel like we should just kind of get it out of the way, because if we get all intense, we might forget about it and they will be rushed at the end.
No problems. Let's do it.
Okay, so Ashley, over to you. Maybe Inketi, maybe Ashley,
Yes.
over to you, and then you can send it off to Inketi, and then I'll just come back when you are done.
So did you say me or did you say Nketi?
I said maybe you introduce the topic to the group, and then Inketi can expand it, and then you guys lead a conversation around that, and then I will take it from there.
Okay, sure. So just before we get started, there was a I know that in the last session we talked about all the topics that we're going to be discussing. One of which is financial empowerment. So that session is going to be happening sometime in June, I believe. So Nketi brought it to me that there is a potential of having a second session about like financial empowerment, but specifically about businesses. So if you're, interested in any entrepreneurship or things along those lines, there's a potential to have a second financial empowerment session. We wanted to bring it to the youth and see what the interest levels were before we booked anything. So I'll pass it over to Nketi first, and you can expand if I missed anything, and then we can pass it over to the youth.
Sure. Thank you so much, Ashley. Good evening, everyone. May I kindly ask that those of you who have your videos to turn your videos on?
I was just about to say that.
So that we can have a really good session, an interactive session, and an intimate session. And I often find that's much better. That's okay. Thank you. So if you've got your videos working, please turn your videos on. And so, I guess just following up from what Ashley was saying. So one of my friends is the VP at BMO. I don't know what BMO stands for, but the bank anyway. And it's for business banking. And with us having the financial empowerment session, but at the individual level, like the personal financial empowerment, I was wondering, would there be value in, let's say, bringing in the business angle? It's separate, but to complement that. So if there's anyone who is at any point thinking of starting a business, or who wants someone who's starting a business, you're not quite sure how to get funding, how to get financing from the bank, what does credit mean, what does good credit mean, bad credit mean, and essentially getting some tips and inputs in terms of how to navigate that financing of the business realm and what the requirements are. I thought it would be useful to have a session like that. But Ashley made a really good suggestion, which is to bring it to the youth and get your intake, get your interest, your level of interest, because I would only want him to come, because he's very busy as well. So I'd only want him to come if there is express interest in what he has to offer. And so if you think it's something that if it's something that you would find valuable or something you're interested in, let us know. And if you're not, that's also okay. But we thought the best, as you are benefiting from it, we have to take it to you. We can't make decisions on your behalf. So that's it. That's my spiel.
Okay, so can we just kind of maybe go around and ask? I'll start, Jolie, you're first on my screen here. What do you think about having that second session?
I would be interested in it, just because I don't really have any background knowledge on that. So I would be interested in learning more.
Okay, cool. Vince, what do you think?
I think it's a great idea because, even if we might not consider something like that right now, in the future, it could always help us, and just be something that we have in our back pocket, So that's pretty cool.
Okay, perfect. Junior, what do you think?
I think that would be a good idea as well, because it's stuff that we haven't learned yet.
Okay. Benita, what do you think? You still making it home? Okay, we'll give her a break. Florent, what do you think?
I think it's a good tip too. It's good to it's good to think about it and like have it like right beside you if you ever needed it. So yeah.
Okay, cool.
We can't
Cool.
see you, Laura.
Oh, sorry.
Raisa, I think you're the last one.
Laurent, keep your video on.
Sorry,
Raisa,
sorry.
can you hear me?
Sorry,
Okay,
sorry.
yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea, honestly.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think we have our answer, and Ketty.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
So we're
tomorrow,
good to
so I
talk
will
to him tomorrow.
those. Okay. Thank you all. Thank you so much. Okay. Over to you, Rita.
Okay. So as we kept on going, I thought, okay, the pressure is on. Who is the one who's going to say no? And they will officially declare you the killjoy. Yeah, no, but I think it's a fantastic idea because if you've been paying attention to the news, you'll be hearing about Black business and how Black entrepreneurs are kind of struggling in the system and they get profiled in terms of getting loans, and it's just harder. So to me, I think it was like a no-brainer, but still, we don't want to foist anything on anybody. So if you want to do that kind of session, in Ketchi, I hope I am invited to come because I'll be tagging along. You never really know. I can start my business in my basement.
Are you kidding? Of course. I am excited because I
Anyway,
agree with you on that. So thank you all.
yeah. Before we start, I'm just curious to hear from the youth. Why do you put your cameras off? I'm really genuinely interested in knowing.
Me too.
I was doing my homework before this.
Okay. Vincent, why do you guys keep your cameras off?
Well, I don't know. Sometimes, you know, like if you're laying down or something, you know, kind of disrespectful or something. So it's like, you know.
Oh, I see. And the ladies, you keep your cameras off because?
Because my hair is not did, and I don't want to scare you away.
Yeah, no, it's very strange because when we go on all of these things, younger people tend to have their camera off, and I have always wondered. So anytime there is a chance, I always ask.
Yeah,
it's an informal survey.
yeah. And sorry, Rita, just to interject there, I'm so glad you asked because even with my students when I teach online, I'm talking to initials the entire class. I have no idea what they look like. And so, yeah, please carry on, Rita.
Yeah. So because we have just, I don't know, 4 or 5 youth, may I propose that we don't have a breakout session and just have like a large group session all through? Will the youth be comfortable with that, or do you still want to go into breakout sessions in groups of, I don't know, 2 or 3?
I think we have a small number of participants, so I think we can just do like 1, I think.
Yeah, and just prioritize the youth voices, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I can see just a few people. Just you show me by maybe a thumbs up or thumbs down. What do you think about that idea before we make a final decision on it and move on? Okay. Okay, fine. So we are going to do that. It will just, generate much more conversation because there's more people in the room talking. So in fact, like I had discussed with you, you are going to just be giving me like background support if there's anything in the chat, because when you are kind of presenting, you can't see the chat. So just monitor the chat for us. For the SOS Congo, yeah. And then for the SOS Congo team, because we are going to be having the breakout sessions, I don't know, do you want to let someone that's going to be compiling the notes that I can get later on as we build our toolkit?
Like a facilitator, or is that what you mean?
I think if it's a facilitator to be better, because then the youth can just concentrate on their ideas and what they have to say, and then the facilitator just thinks about writing it all down, so we don't, lose anything because somebody is thinking and writing at the same time.
Sure. So sorry, how many breakout rooms? There's 2 breakout rooms, or we're just doing 1?
We are just in one.
Okay. Felicia, do you want to do it?
Sorry, do what?
Take notes in the breakout session.
Okay, sure, I could do that.
Okay, cool.
So, so Rita, let me get this straight. Are we going into just having one breakout session, or are we just going to remain in this room?
We just remain in this room. We are not going to a breakout session anymore.
Okay.
Yeah, it just makes sense that way. It's just that we will make sure that we are not talking over the youth, because this is about their voices, and so we'll just be conscious of that. But then everyone is welcome to share an opinion, just so we can get more of a vibrant conversation going. I'm trying to move things off my screen and get to see more people. La, 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 la. Okay, so let us get started here with our first with our first session on generally the idea of poverty and the notions of poverty out there. The reason for this is because there is a dominant idea around poverty, that everybody defaults to. But then increasingly, right from the level of the international big players to the grassroots level, there is a recognition that poverty is not about lack of money. So today we are going to be looking at poverty beyond money. And this work is actually steeped in research that I did at the CPI 4 or 5 years ago. And my experience is that it has very deep resonance anytime it is presented. The last time I presented this was at the Alberta College of Social Workers conference, and the resonance was just so great. But the problem is that we are working with a system that doesn't recognize this expanded view of poverty. And so people are falling through the cracks because of the limited idea that we have about poverty and that we use to work around poverty. The flip side of that is, of course, well-being. So when we are talking poverty, at the back of your mind, be thinking well-being as well, because you want to have that strength-based approach to all that we are doing. So like I said, in Ketchy, I'll just be giving you hints as to what's in the chat. If there's anything in the chat, you just report it back. And then for the facilitators, just take notes when the big group is talking, or I have like question kind of peppered through. Anytime there are a discussion going on, it would be very great if we could get that feedback all recorded. Just before I again start, I just want to remind all of us, especially the youth, that everything you say here potentially gets into our toolkit, and you'll be getting credit for that. So it is not just an idea you throw out into the wind and that is about it. You are going to be getting credit for it. So keep that at the back of your mind. It is part of the cultural capital building we've been talking about all along. So just before we start, the right thing to do, especially as we are wanting to talk about racism and anti-racism, is to acknowledge the land on which we are working and we play here, and we were welcome here pretty much everyone. So we just want to acknowledge that we are on the traditional territories of the let me move this thing out of my way, 57 region in Southern Alberta, and that includes the Blackfoot Confederacy, as well as the Christina Nation, the Stoney Nakoda, including the Chiniki, Bestfor, and Wesley First Nations. And we do recognize that we are also on the Métis Region 3 Nation of Alberta. So I always want to emphasize that for me, it is not just a place where I am living and working, but then we play as well. And even though we are doing a course, a workshop, whatever you want to call it, recognize that we also want to have fun. So we are learning, but then we are also playing. So just feel free. The other thing that I want to talk about before we get into the details are things that are going to set the tone for our conversation. And as you can see over here, we want to make sure that we have a safe space. We do recognize there are people on this call on different levels on the age spectrum, different levels on the professional spectrum. We are from different places. We want everyone to feel welcome, comfortable, and not feel like your voice does not matter over here. That is what we mean by having a safe space. From here on in, we want to make sure everybody has a brave space. So be okay to embrace the discomfort of some of the things that you say. I, for one, I know that when I do teach and present and do all of the other public engagements, I do share a bit of myself with all of that. And it's not everything that is good that you share, but you share it for a very specific reason. So this is a brave space, and it will be okay to encounter these difficult things and just say them, knowing that no one is going to judge you or silence you or anything like that. We want to make sure that there is a lot of engagement. So especially for students here in the class, and there's just the same 5 people all the time speaking up, we want to make sure everybody's view is included in this, in these sessions, I should say, not just this one. Because my view is that anytime we are encountering new information, new content, there is nobody that comes and they are completely clueless. Everybody comes with some information, and then we structure and build on that. So this is the time to structure and build your views. Even if you think your idea is quote unquote dumb, say it. This is a safe space and it's a brave space. The other thing I want to say is that one of my big practices is, let's say I call you to say something and you really don't have anything to say. Our get out card is pass. And when you pass, no one is going to judge you. We just know at this point in time, you don't have an opinion on this, or you don't want to share an opinion on that, and we can continue. So we take out the awkwardness of, oh my God, I'm on the spot and I have to say something. Even if you begin making your point and you lose your train of thought, just go back to the word pass. And then, we just move on, and there is nothing awkward going on in there. Very importantly, I want to stress the importance of confidentiality. So there are things that might be said here today throughout our whole project that you'd hear about people, places, things. We want to make sure that we are keeping all that we are hearing within this context. When I say unless permitted, it is only when the person gives you permission to talk about this elsewhere. If not, that is not our role. So we might hear it over here, but then don't text the person later on and go, oh my God, that was so something, whatever you said. Can I hear some more? That is not professional, and it's not just okay. So unless you really have reason to, maybe a fellow picks it up with you after the class, you can join in, but we want to make sure that we are not tackling and spreading people's life and experiences to other people that are not within our project. Like I said, we want everyone to feel welcome over here, feel that we are building a community. We started having these conversations back in, I don't know, August or so. It's been a long time, and there are already connections that have been made. By the time this class is over, and by the time the whole project is over, we want to feel like we are a community and we all have a reason to belong in it. And it is a respecting of ideas that allows us to feel that we are part of this community. As we go along, if you have any questions, just let me know that you have a question. And if I am missing it, just begin to speak and I'll hear you and then I'll stop. So you can make a question or make your comment as we go along. Don't wait until there is a question time, because there is none. And sometimes when you seize the moment, that is when it is most effective. So don't shy back from that. I just want to make a note about the tone we are using when we speak. This is a formal environment, even though it straddles the informal a little bit. So we want to make sure that we are not, swearing or saying things that just kind of taint the environment, or that would come across the wrong way to people that are listening to us. We know people have gotten in trouble because of the tone of voice that we use when we are making our point. So we might have good points, but then if our tone is off, then it might just rub people the wrong way, and we wouldn't be making the impact that we need. This is a skill that we all need as people just walking around in society. So it is not just for here per se, but we can practice it anywhere. I just want to open a discussion around social media. And actually, let me put you on the spot on this one. What is your policy on posting on social media?
We have a team that is comprised of interns, And sorry, my video isn't working. I'm not just turning it off to be annoying, just saying that. But no, we have a team of youth or interns that are responsible for posting on social media. So Nikita, she was the one that joined the meeting for a minute. She's one of the SOS Congo founders, and she's kind of in charge of that. So yeah, I don't know that we have a formal process.
Okay.
Am I right in thinking, are you asking, let's say, for example, if one of the youth wanted to say, oh, participating in this, is that what you're asking about specifically? Or let's say,
yes. So Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, you know, I don't know, all of those things. Are there boundaries around that? Just maybe for intellectual property reasons or just for protecting who is in the conversation reasons? Do we want to have a space? I don't know what your boundaries are. So again.
Okay, I see. We don't necessarily, I mean, we use WhatsApp. We communicate in a group on WhatsApp. We a little bit of like Instagram messaging, but not much. So only like if, you know, about something that just kind of to make it easier. But if that person I'm talking to on Instagram, I usually will also have them as a contact on WhatsApp. So I mean, primarily in terms of social media, that's the platform that we use.
Okay. Well, actually, and this is my bad. I think we should have discussed it like way earlier. It was just as I was writing today, it occurred to me, oh my God, we haven't talked about social media. So I know I've kind of sprung it on all of us, but it's something we should be thinking about, especially as we are, you know, in a formal, you know, course and we are wanting to build a toolkit out of that. We might want to be a little bit more circumspect about the building. But if you just say, I am attending this thing over here and just give information on the level 1, maybe I don't see why you cannot like tweet out that you are doing this or post on LinkedIn that you are doing this, but then maybe details we might want to hold back on just because we don't know, you know, what we might be getting into when it involves other professionals. So something like that. We can flesh this out as we go along. So for the youth and pretty much anyone else, is there anything you want us to record in terms of the setting the tone so we know that we are starting on a good footing? Okay. If anyone thinks about something that they think we should include in our setting the tone slide, we can always just add on so we know that we are curating ideas from everyone and we have an environment that everybody feels like we can function in and not feel separated, differentiated, anything other derogatory word, or we don't want any of that. So even if something happens and we do, oh, in hindsight, we should include this, then we would include it just to make sure that we are covering all of our bases. Okay, so let's begin by looking at what I intend for us to finish doing today. So the first thing is, here I'm speaking primarily to the youth participants, but then more generally to all of us, because this might be new content. Introducing all of us and especially our participants to that notion of multidimensional notion of child-youth poverty. I might be saying child poverty a lot because it's just simpler, but basically there is a link between that child-youth poverty that I'm talking about. We want to touch on that link between poverty and racism, which is actually one of the reasons that started all of this in the first place. So we'll have a conversation about that. And then it will be great if we can leave this place kind of reflecting on the ways in which we are poor. Even if you are not a youth, the framework still applies to you. And if it doesn't apply, then that is where we want to be, ideally. So it doesn't mean that we should all come out looking for something that qualifies us as poor. If your life at this point does not have anything to do with that, then fantastic. That's what we want to see anyway. So I'll just like jump right in and say, let's do a little exercise. So Is it Caroline taking the notes?
No, it's me.
It's Felicia.
Oh, yeah. Okay, Felicia, thank you. Thank you. So here you can begin taking notes about the discussion that we are going to have. And the first thing we are going to be talking about is for the youth participants. And don't be shy to say it. You don't have to have a correct answer. Your answer is not dumb or anything like that. When you think about poverty, what do you think about? It can be a word, a phrase, a place, a thing. It does not matter. Just throw it out there.
When we think about poverty, think about like third world countries,
Okay.
instability. I would say yeah, I think those two, instability and third world countries.
Okay. Did you say stability or instability?
Instability.
Instability. Okay, thank you. Felicia, when you finish writing that point, please write in brackets group stability and just leave it as that. Let's take another other views on when you think about poverty. What do you think about?
It looks like Jolie has her hand up.
Oh, sorry, I can't see. So thank you so much for that, Ashley.
So when I think about poverty, I think about not having access to basic needs like water, food, shelter, and for other people. But for my life, I think just being broke.
Fair enough. Put it in there. Yes. What other points of view do we have? Vincent? Or did Vincent just speak?
Yeah, I just spoke.
Okay. Junior?
When I think about poverty, I think more about back home, not having the resources to eat, to have clean water, and, like not being able to live a comfortable life also, like not knowing what your next like meal is going to be per se. So that's what I think about when I think about.
For sure. Reza? Am
So
I saying it correctly? Is it Reza or Riza? I forget, sorry.
Raisa.
Riza, okay.
So I'm gonna say lacking money, lacking possibility actually, because you can have money, but maybe you don't have the possibility to either get food or pay bills. So I will say maybe either lacking a job or lacking money and to be able to feed yourself or your kids.
For sure. Benita, is Benita a participant? I think so.
Yeah, I am. So I would really just say the same thing when it comes just being broke, not having the money that you will need to like spend on yourself or to spend on things that you need to. Yeah.
Okay. Jacob, you are welcome. I just noticed that you are here. How long have you been here?
Yeah, I kind of forgot about this, so my bad. I just hopped on. I got all the notifications.
Okay. So are you able to offer an idea around when you think about poverty, what do you think about, or you are still gathering yourself?
Sure. Yeah. So like in school, we learned like there's this like pyramid thing of like basic human necessities, and each time you got higher, it was less and less crucial. So I'd say not even being able to afford the bottom row, which would be like food, water, shelter, struggling at least to obtain those certain things. And then as you get higher, I mean, those are just benefits.
Yeah. So you are talking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Who have all of the youth said something? Who did I miss?
I think Laurent. Did Laurent say something?
Yeah. When I think of poverty is that you struggle to obtain things, in your way, and it's hard to like obtain it for like struggle of work or school or anything. So I think that's what poverty is like you just struggle to obtain stuff for like an easy route. So that's why.
Yeah. Yeah, Laura, thank you for that phrasing. And Felicia, if you do not mind, just put an asterisk or asterisks on that phrasing, because I think it really cuts into some of the things that we are wanting to do here. You just struggle to obtain.
Can I say something?
Pardon me?
Like say something. I'm not a youth, but to contribute.
Oh, for sure, of course.
this.
Actually, I was just about to open it out to everyone else.
Okay. Oh, okay. But when we think about poverty, I see the treatment that the child gets in the society, which is not good treatment, and it makes me think about the child in the street. And make also think the lack of the opportunity to learn for education. And those aspects make me think that there's poverty because, those the aspect that I observe in the child poverty.
Yeah, the treatment a child gets. I wish I could unpack that with you a little bit more.
But you can.
Yeah, so when you say the treatment a child gets, like what image are you looking at in your mind's eye when you say that?
Okay. The fair treatment, when I see, not maybe, not, let's say that the child, those children that we see, most of them you see in the street, it's not because of the lack parents but like they are left on their own. And also they are expected to work, to do, to be like a source of the income, to bring income home. And what I would also observe in other parts of the world that instead of using grown-ups, people who can do the work to be paid normally, they will use children or youth for the peanuts. So that I feel that the kind of treatment I will see the way socially treated.
Okay. If people have other ideas on what poverty looks like, just throw it in the chat. Nketi is monitoring the chat. She will collate those ideas as well. But let's move on to this idea of well-being. And I'm going to just switch the mode of discussion this time round and just say for all of actually everyone, just throw into the chat when you think about well-being in a human, what do you think about? And again, it can be a word, a phrase, an image, a place. That's what matters. Just throw it all in. And in case you just do us the honors of reading out what we do here from what people think about when they hear well-being.
So Reza has said stability. So may I ask, could you elaborate on that, Reza? When you say stability, what does stability mean? Stability of what? Stability of whom?
When you're stable, you're capable of taking care of yourself and the people around you. That's what I meant. I don't know if okay.
No, it doesn't have to be right or wrong. That is your opinion. You were thinking about something when you said what you said. So it doesn't have to align with anybody's idea. It's just yours, and that is it. What else do we have in the chat?
We have Felicia who says, being house poor or only having enough to barely get by. This is for the poverty question. Okay, that's for the poverty question.
Oh, okay. Fine. That's okay. Just make sure that you are separating nicely so we don't miss anything. What else is in the chat around
That's it.
well-being?
That's it for now.
Come on, we can have more things. Talk about flowers and sunshine. I don't know. Just put in stuff.
Well-being would be like strong relationships, like friends, family, and like, you know, having a stable job and things like that.
Okay.
Mhm.
Whose
And
voice did we just hear?
so, oh, I don't know.
Vincent.
Okay,
Vincent.
thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. And so Jacob said mental well-being. Can you elaborate what you mean by mental well-being? You're not right or wrong. I just want more information. Sorry, Rita. I hope that's okay.
Yeah, mental well-being as in like just taking care of yourself mentally, making sure that you're not like overwhelming yourself, especially when that ties into poverty. Like those two kind of go hand in hand. That'd be very stressful, especially if like you have a family, like these things start to pile on top of each other. So just trying to make sure that your head's in a good place.
Okay. And SOS
Sounds good.
Congo, I think that's either Ashley or Kenzo, said lack of supervision for children. Are you referring to the well-being question or the poverty question?
The poverty question.
Okay.
So I think like a reflection or like a something, you know, that you see in situations of poverty is also children kind of not having appropriate supervision.
Yes. That's the social worker speaking.
Yeah, true.
And Benita said, I think she's referring to the well-being. Benita said comfortable and peaceful. Oh, that sounds so nice.
Okay.
And
All
Lavi
right.
said state of equilibrium or stability in all aspects of life. It can be mental, psychological, social, financial, and you name them.
Okay, let's put it all in there. I kind of just wanted to, again, and if you have any more ideas, just throw them in there as we make progress. Even if we have passed, just make sure this is for like Felicia, that this is for this question and put it in there and we can always go back. But I just kind of, in my mind, I noticed that we are talking about poverty and our minds seem to be somewhere, right? It's almost like, no, we are not in Canada when we are thinking about what poverty is. And I just thought to highlight the observation that I just made. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. It is just the picture that drew in my mind as we were thinking about, you know, what poverty is. But then we were thinking about well-being. For some reason, it was hitting closer to home type of examples. And I really don't know why it resonates like that. Maybe it's just the people on the call, but it's just a broad observation that I made. Daniel, are you a participant or a facilitator?
He's a facilitator.
Okay, because that's right. Okay, I thought I was remembering correctly or wrongly. Okay, so let's move on and talk about this long sentence over here. I'm trying to be, use as accessible language as possible. And if you're not understanding, no shy, just go, hey, seriously, this is all over the top of my head, and I'll dial back a little bit for the younger ones. But this is the official definition for poverty in Canada. Prior to 2015-16, there was none. So if you wanted a definition for poverty, you just had to go, oh, really? Okay, lack of money. And that is what everyone had been using. And for all of the professionals in here, maybe some of the older people in university and that kind of thing, you would have heard about the LICO and the LIM and the MBM, all those kinds of things. I'm just throwing these acronyms out. You don't have to know about them, but they all were tied to money until this definition was made. And the only reason I am using it is to want to draw our attention to the fact that we do have this definition over here, but then two, to focus our attention on what I have highlighted, that capacity to integrate and participate in your society. I think that for our group of people over here, that is what might have the most resonance. To what extent do you think you are participating in this society? So I just have put it in there as a chew on this, where chew on this is you don't have to offer an opinion on it right now, but it is something you just want to tuck into the back of your mind and think about. In Canada, they say that if a person is deprived of resources, choices, needs necessary to acquire a certain standard of living and cannot participate in their society, then they are poor. As a racialized youth, as a youth, as anybody, to what extent am I able to participate in the society? What I want us to do with this two on this is for every youth on the call, and essentially for everyone, if for non-youth, if you want to participate, just write down right now on your scale of 1 to 10, where 10 is excellent participation, where you belong. So 1 would be at all. I have no idea when it comes to identity participation in the society. 10 is I have no problems at all. And just leave that answer over there. What we are going to do with this one is to see how your answer changes as we go through all of the other modules that are coming down the road. So yeah, do you have any questions or comments on this before we continue? Don't be shy, just ask, wait. Okay.
If I may ask,
yes.
Now we're talking about child, but like here, I heard you saying not child and youth. What's age you have in mind for people talking about?
For child and youth, that is actually one of the biggest problems definitionally within the sector. So depending on the agency or depending on whatever is available, then they define child and youth. But off the top of my head, I'm looking at somebody who's about age 14, kind of topping out around 29, 30 thereabouts. That's my whole big picture idea. But then I'm sure Ashley and Felicia and co might have more specific ideas of what that means. So if you don't mind, Felicia, would you want to weigh in? When we say child or youth in your practice, what does that mean?
Yeah, for me, because I work with teen moms, like I think of child is like the toddlers, babies we work with, and youth would be like 12 to 17.
Yes. Yes. And then for Ashley, oh, sorry, you have to speak.
Okay, I'm
done. For me, I think child and youth, anything under 18. That's really what I work with, but honestly, even a little bit higher, like into the 20, 22, 23 range is still, I still consider youth with my work.
Yes. Lavi, what do you encounter?
Interesting. I'm a little bit lost, but yeah, I think from differential psychology, youth is from 18 to 35. However, child is from from birth to 18.
Yes. Yeah. So I think for me, the issue is like when it comes to child, there is quite a closer amount of consensus around what a child is. Youth is where it's just all over the place. Some go as high as 35, some will cut off at 24. And when we were doing this particular study, that is one of the biggest challenges that we had. When do we say a person is a youth and when are they not a youth anymore? We don't know that. My advice or my guidance would be for SOS Congo going forward to decide yourself based on who you are interacting with, what is a youth. As for children, it's fairly straightforward. But for youth, for us, who is a youth would be my middle ground as we go along. Is that okay? I know you were, I was calling you Papa. Is it Papa Mbemba or Papa Ndembe?
Dembe.
Papa Dembe.
Dembe. Yes.
Dembe. Okay, because I remember the Papa, I was just not remembering the rest. So
yeah,
let me
I like
say
to
that
call me
out.
Papa. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
That's Ike. Yeah.
Yes. So for everyone, especially for the youth, if you have recorded your answer, just keep it and we'll come back to it and just reflect on how your answer is changing in terms of how you feel you are participating. And the reason for this is because we are looking at a framework of racism and anti-racism. And so that is why I am picking on that particular aspect for us to kind of look at. Now, let us go on.
Rita, may I ask, where would you like them to record their answers? Do you want them to keep it private, personal, or do they want them to put it in the chat?
Personal.
Okay.
No, it's personal.
Okay.
I think we are freezing a little bit.
Razor's asking, what is the question again? So Rita, perhaps go to the previous page. Can you hear me? Yeah, there's a question.
Are we okay to continue? Yes, so that is a personal thing. Don't share it yet. Just keep it there. Was there something else in the chat? Because I'm seeing something kind of popping up all the time.
Nope.
Okay. Okay, so let's move on and talk about this idea of a capabilities approach to poverty. For all the things that you'd want to be able to brag about, this is one of them. It really underpins a lot of the multi-dimensional thinking around poverty that we've been talking about. And the reason I like this, or I'm using this particular one for our work class session here today, is because one, it is a human rights approach. And when we come to the well-being of children and youth, human rights issues are not negotiable. They are just what they are. And then two, Canada has signed on to the Convention on the Rights of the Child. So if you know that as a child or youth, Canada is a signatory to the Convention on the Rights of the Child, and that you living in poverty is a human rights issue, that alone gives you something to begin to chew on and maybe reflect on what your entitlements are, what your life is, and where you want to go. Those are the two main reasons why I kind of went with this one over here. But then also it underpins this research that we did, as I was saying, 4 or 5 years ago. And the one word that really we were using a lot was this idea of capabilities. And so as you can see right on the slide over there, it's talking about capable. Just reduce the word down to capable. Capable means like what? Let me pick on someone. Benita, I haven't heard your voice in a while. When we say capable, how can you rephrase that to explain to somebody who doesn't quite understand the word?
Capable?
Yes.
Like you are able to do something.
There we go. You are able to do something. Sharp. So even if you reduce that word to just capable, I can do something, you can then take it from that basic level and go up. If I can do something, I can excel in life. I can escape poverty. I can create a meaningful path in my life. I can. So the whole idea of the capabilities approach is enabling. Can you or can you not? That is what the basic idea of the capabilities approach is about. So simple, but it is a human rights issue. Then you can layer on this idea of having viable options for charting a life's course. So yes, you can dream all you want about all of the things that you want to do, but then do you have the viable options to pursue and be able to do? If your answer is no, then by the capability standard model, there is a problem in terms of poverty or well-being. And so it is intrinsically linked to what we are trying to do here with the anti-racism project, to say it's a human rights issue. Can we participate in our society? Can I do the things I want to do? Can I do the things I desire to do? If your answer to all of those ones are wrong, then you'd want to be paying very close attention to the things that we'll be talking about later on. So you can be using this can I framework to think and reflect about where you are at in terms of your experiences of deprivation and having things. Let's just get some time now to talk about racism. I'm assuming we all know what racism is, but for the sake of discussion, what is racism?
Isn't racism, no, I'm not 100% sure here, but isn't it like discrimination or prejudice against a certain race based on your views on life?
Yes, we can go with that. What else can we say? What is racism?
I think racism can be like, so I think it in a way that like the reason why it relates to poverty so much is because it can kind of make us, instead of enabling us to achieve what we want to achieve, it can kind of stop us from achieving our full potential, because it's like a barrier that.
Okay. Jolie, if I may just interrupt you about that, you are putting the cart before the horse. What is racism?
Well, being discriminated against because of your race.
Okay. That is something that we would encounter later on. So let's not belabor the point, but then I'm pretty sure Felicia has recorded, whatever we are talking about. It's not the main point today. The main point that I want to make with this thing here is to the point that Jolie you were making. So let me give you a chance to finish your point. That interplay between poverty and racism. So one, we know that when a person is racialized, any person, you don't have to be poor or rich or anything, the chance that you are going to experience racism is increased. We know that for a fact. If you are a person that is experiencing racism as you navigate through life, your chance of experiencing poverty similarly goes up. So that relationship, we know it is not contested anywhere. But like I said, I want to go back to Jolie and pick your brain on that. Why are these true? And you were talking about that already. So if you haven't lost your thought train, pick it up.
On the relationship with poverty and racism, or just like what is racism in general?
No, the relationship.
It becomes the barrier to achieve what you want to achieve. So it becomes a barrier in achieving like economic stability.
Okay.
And like reaching your full potential.
Okay. Felicia, is the pace okay, or are we going too fast?
It's okay.
Perfect. Did anyone else want to weigh in on the link between poverty and racism for our youth?
It looks like Jacob has his hand up.
Okay.
Yeah, I just had a couple questions. What is a racialized person? What does that mean?
Okay, let me throw it back to the group. Who is a racialized person? Is Ike on the call?
No, he's not.
Okay. Nketi, let me put you on the spot. What is a racialized person? Who is a racialized person?
Spot indeed. But my understanding of a racialized person will be somebody who, let's say, whose race has typically, let's say, is somebody who is a member of a particular race that has been discriminated against, faces a lot of prejudice, and there are systems in place that, let's say, disable or reduces their capacity or capability to navigate the system, unleash their potential of sorts.
Okay. Any other ideas?
Oh, sorry. I was just going to
Yes,
say,
Ashley.
like, isn't a racialized person just somebody who's not white?
Okay.
I don't know.
Yes, but there's an interplay between the two, being non-white and having the systems or maybe the odds stacked against you. Well, the criteria you can basically use. Navi, I can see your thought process.
It flew away, but I was thinking that a racialized person is someone who is victim of racial treatment, in short.
Mm-hmm.
A victim of, you cut out a little bit, I didn't quite hear you.
Someone who's victim of racial treatment.
Oh, yes, so stereotypes and those kinds of things, yes. Jacob, are we helping you?
Yeah, just one more question here, if you don't mind. So what is the actual correlation between a racialized person and experiencing racism? Because from what I understand, it kind of sounds like they're already experiencing racism. Is that right? Like they're already set up to experience racism before they have a chance to live their life, basically, right? Am I getting that?
Yes, that's the point.
Okay.
Yes, so you are starting out on life with in life, well, like I said before, with the odds stacked against you.
Right.
And that, yes, and that is where we are coming from. I just wanted to make a small note on the question that you asked. There are pockets of indigenous people or First Nations people that push back on the idea of them being racialized. So when you use the word, just know that you have to be a little bit circumspect when you're around indigenous people, because some of them push back on the label racialized. So yeah, if you encounter it, it wouldn't be totally out of the left field. So let's go back to our idea of that link. So Jolie had said something about not having, just not, what, oh, Jolie, sorry, I forgot what you said.
So it's just like what I said about the poverty and racism.
Yeah.
I just said it would like set you back in achieving your full potential. So it becomes like a barrier.
Yes. Okay. Oh, yes, that's the wording I was trying to remember. I couldn't. Okay, yes. So there is a barrier over there. Let's hear from more youth. Let's just go around. Laura, do you have any ideas as to why this correlation or these statements are generally true?
Oh, you asking me?
Yes, please.
Repeat the question again, sorry.
So if a person is racialized, why is their risk of living in poverty higher?
I don't know. Okay, I'll come back to you for a second.
Yeah, you can pass.
Yeah.
Daniel just put on his camera. I feel like you are lining up to share an opinion.
Bonjour tout le monde. Déjà, je pense que le risque est très élevé pour quelqu'un qui est déjà contraint aux stéréotypes du racisme, surtout dans la société où quand on t'a déjà tracé un chemin, on dit que tu vas commencer par ici, tu vas finir par ici, et tu as l'impression que les limites sont nombreuses autour de toi par rapport à ta peau, par rapport à ta manière de réfléchir, parce que tout le monde te voit déjà comme un sous-être. Alors pour moi, une personne racialisée déjà dès le début a beaucoup de chances de vivre dans la pauvreté et surtout au niveau de sa mentalité parce que ça érige comme une certaine des limites par rapport à sa réflexion, par rapport à sa manière de penser et même aussi par rapport à sa manière de voir les autres. Alors pour moi, le racisme n'est pas seulement le fait de voir la peau de quelqu'un et de détester cette peau, ça va au-delà de tout ça, ça va au-delà, ça devient une manière de penser parce que ça va loin, ça devient même un système qui met des gens dans des limites telles qu'ils ne peuvent pas faire quelque chose au-delà de leur couleur de peau. Donc, c'est un peu ce que moi, je pense par rapport à la question que vous avez posée.
Okay,
to translate really quickly here, I think what Daniel was trying to say is how like the depths of racism. So we see the color of the skin first, but it starts to impact like how we structure our thoughts. on a deeper level, it starts to create these limitations within ourselves, and it also creates a system outside of ourselves where people participating in that same kind of, he didn't mention like kind of white power structure, but kind of everybody operating under the same system starts to operate in a certain kind of way where it's a really it's that connection there between poverty, the color of your skin, and just how the system we're under kind of perforates everything and limits people beyond that.
Okay. Did I hear something about your thoughts? Like something about thoughts?
Something about what, sir?
The ways in which people think. Did I hear something about that?
Yes, yes. It changes like the manner in which we structure our thoughts.
Okay, okay. So I think that you're kind of hinting over there at internalized racism. And Felicia, if you don't mind, just make a note of that. And the reason I kind of picked that on that, not to diminish all that Daniel, you just said, is we minimize the impact of internalized racism on our life scores. And I just wanted to highlight that for the benefit of our youth who are still in their formative, impressionable years, the ways in which you process who you are and where you are going really can impact your experiences and how, eventually, you kind of turn out. I'm sure when we do the session on racism, it will come up again, but it does not matter that you are hearing about it now, just something again to chew on. Would anybody wants to share an opinion about this, or maybe throw the idea in the chat and we move on? If I can move on, just maybe show by like a thumbs up or something if your camera is on, so we can move on. Okay, I've seen like 2 or 3. All right, Joe, speak for the group. Let's go. So here we are going to start talking about this multidimensional view of child and youth poverty. But really, this one here can apply to anybody. But the reason we are just limiting it to poverty, to children and youth, is because that is who we were talking about and talking with when this work was done. And so I'm just wanting to leave it here, and we'll take our bio break and come back and just talk about these things over here. So when we say standard of living poverty, in your own words, what does that mean? Child self-perception poverty, what does that mean? Relationship poverty, what does that mean? And for structural poverty, what does that mean? So let us take a small break, maybe 5-10 minutes thereabouts. Stretch, get the blood moving so that when we go for our AstraZeneca shot, we don't get a blood clot, and then we can come back. Yeah. Beryl. Okay. I saw your school calling me. Do you know why? Yeah. Yeah, Francis, like it was about 6 o'clock. Listen to the message and yes. Me? Oh no, I'm fine. I just um no, I'm wondering why Beryl School was calling me. That's all. Hello? Hello?
Hi.
It's you. Could you please put in the chat that when people come, they should put on their camera so we know they are here.
Okay.
Yeah. For where we are at, I think we'll soon finish. Where are your kiddies?
With their pups.
Bonding time. Good for them.
With their
And here
dad.
I am.
And I have banned the use of tablets. So in the evenings. And so I just went upstairs to check up on them and he looks like he's suffering.
Sounds like an idea.
They're not distracted with the tablets.
No. Daniel didn't get a tablet until grade 6.
Wow, that's good. But you know these kids nowadays.
No, Meredith doesn't have any technology. She doesn't. It's just the way we operate.
That's good. That's
Oh,
good.
yeah.
When they start school, like they're not gonna have any technology when they start school, so they should enjoy it now for the next 3 months.
Yeah, and they have like these games and things, and they'll play them. Well, weekdays, no. When it's like a Saturday, you can do a little bit of Nintendo, something like that. But then during the week, done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the rhythm is set, so I don't even have to talk about it. It's just what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. People are beginning to come back. That is nice. Ike, I have a question for you.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Don't respond if it is too personal. But where are the kids?
Wow, it's always a juggling act. So you guys have me for the rest of the evening today, and I think for the rest of the sessions as well. The kids are upstairs. We had a little bit of help today with childcare, so we try to just work the best way we can there.
Yeah. No, just a curiosity question because like both parents are here. Where did the kids go? Did you shrink them? Honey, I shrunk the kids. Yeah. Okay. I'm just going to do like a call just to see who is here. Vincent, are you here?
Yeah.
Okay, Raisa?
Raisa's, I think she's struggling to hear something. I'm not hearing anything. Raisa, can you hear me now?
She's here. Junior, are you back?
Yeah, I'm here.
Perfect. Felicia, our diligent note taker. Oh yes, Felicia is back. Once Felicia is back, we can start.
Yeah, I'm here.
Well, if Felicia is not here, it's almost like the driver is not here, so we can't go.
Know it.
Okay. Lavi, are you back? Okay.
Yes.
Lavi,
Yes, I'm back.
I was just going to say you are still getting your coffee.
No, at this time.
Okay, and okay, so is Daniel there?
Yes.
Perfect. So I feel like everyone is back, and oh, Lordy, Papa, Ike, help me. Papa Mbembe, Papa Mbembe.
Dembe, I'm here.
Mbembe. I like the name. I want to use it. Papa Mbembe. Okay.
You like it?
I like it a lot. Like, oh yeah, I wish I had a complete African name.
Oh
yes, like when I come across an African name, this falls to it.
Papa Ndembe, does the name mean green onion?
Ndembe said, Raisa says that Ndembe is green onion in Lingala.
And we want to make sure that we are not keeping.
What is mean in Lingala?
Was somebody saying something?
Raisa,
that is
you speak Kikongo, no?
that's
Or no,
Kikongo.
only Lingala?
I do speak Lingala, but I speak mostly Congo.
On the MB.
Yeah, I think I froze. Are we back?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Okay. All right.
On the MB.
Nimbe. Some they call me Indembe. No, Indembe.
Indembe. Okay. So let us get started. There's about maybe 2 more discussions to have and 2 more information to introduce, and then we will be done. So let us just begin. Are we recording again?
Pandembe, could you please mute your microphone?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I was wondering where it was coming from. I was trying to figure it out. Thank you, Kitty. So are we recording again?
Yes.
Okay, so then we can continue. So this time is for us to, are you going to move or not? Oh, there we go. Okay, so now, like I said before the break, we had these like 4 domains of child youth poverty, but now it's where we get into the meat of it. What are we talking about when we talk about standard of living poverty and child self-perception poverty? Like, what do these things mean? Here is just the information page where well, standard of living poverty is about lack of adequate financial resources. That is the one most of us know. That is the one our systems and our structures and our policies use overwhelmingly when we are talking about people that are living in poverty and those that are not living in poverty. The first one is what everyone defaults to, pretty much like 90%. But more and more, like I'm saying, there is other notions of poverty popping up. It is possible that you wouldn't come across these self-perception anywhere else apart from here, because there are very many very many takes on what multidimensional experiences of poverty are. This is ours when it comes to children and youth. So even if you want to generalize, just say, well, there could be other iterations over there, and don't get into an argument you cannot win. Basically, it's just a word of caution. So number 2, when we talk about child self-perception poverty, that is where we are talking about the thought processes of the child or youth, the things that they think about. For instance, all of us have been a child before and would ask, when you grow up, what do we want to do? The social workers on here might be able to corroborate what I'm saying, but there are some children that really draw a blank. They don't think about that. It's not part of the things they think about. It's just, I don't know. Okay. That is one of the things that we identified as an issue, because for children, you need to be having like an increasing outlook and an increasingly sophisticated conversation with yourself as you go on through life. And even for now, we still have those conversations with ourselves in our head. So for children and youth, when these conversations are not happening, then there is something wrong. It should not be that way. So we are talking about this sense of self that kind of informs your outlook on life, and what you think your prospects in life are going to be, and how you think you can make something of yourself going forward. Some of us have like a good outlook on our life, but then the rest of the question is like, I have no idea how this is going to happen, and the internal conversation you are having is kind of dim and dark and just clueless or confused, and that is not good. So that is one of the ideas of child perception poverty that we talked about. I don't want to prejudice you too much, so I'll just go back to the next slide and just ask you to reflect on what these 2 things mean to you. Standard of living poverty, does it resonate? Does it make sense to you? child self-perception poverty, does it make sense to you? Especially with the second one, you can think of it as part of identity formation. Because when you are thinking about yourself, you are thinking about an identity. So if you are thinking about, does this make sense to me when I'm having my personal narrative? Does this make sense to me? See if it does or see if it doesn't. Here we're wanting to go into a breakout room, but then unfortunately we don't have enough people, but then we would make lemonade with our lemons. So I'm going to be deferring to the youth heavily over here. For question A, let us just talk about that for now because we have about 15 minutes to talk about this. When you hear about standard of living poverty as it relates to a child, does it resonate with you? Does it make sense? Do you connect to it? And in what way? Somebody can start, or I can start calling me.
Jacob has his hand up.
Okay, there we go. Thank you.
Yeah, just 1 second here. I acted a bit prematurely. I just had a question about B, but I can answer A if that's helpful.
Okay, that's okay. We can go with B and then go back to A. It doesn't matter. We just want to get the conversation started.
Sure. So does the child's self-perception poverty, does that kind of tie into, you guys were talking about earlier, a barrier of like the internal kind of racism? Is that kind of, do those two tie together?
You are onto something in there, yes. So I wouldn't say they tie together, but then the self-perception poverty can feed into it.
Okay.
Yes, but there's definitely a link over there.
Okay.
All right. So do you want us to, so you had a question, so do you want to weigh in on the second one and just like set us going, or where are you at?
Me?
Yes, Jacob, does it resonate
okay.
with you?
How does the standard of, yeah, I think so. The standard of living, that's like how well you're living, correct? Like your basic necessities are met and then some on top of that?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, it resonates. Well, for who else does this resonate? And you can use an example to make your point as to why this makes sense to you or why it doesn't make sense to you. Is Benita back?
I'm here.
Okay, can we hear you?
How does the idea of standard of living poverty make sense to me? Honestly, I don't know.
Okay, that's fair. Jolie is right there.
Yeah. I would connect these ideas together because, well, child self-perception of poverty is like how you, what you think is considered poor, right? And then standard of living poverty is based on like each country has their own standard of living poverty, and everyone has a different idea of what that means to them, I think. Based on the economy, the environment you're living in, the country, culture.
Okay. So let me try to make a small distinction over here. Yes, they are connected. Actually, all of the dimensions that we are talking about are connected, because my philosophy is that a human being is not compartmentalized. A human being is interconnected. So it is just for argument's sake or for analysis sake, these things are kind of being presented as separate things, but in lived experience, they are interconnected. So that is a valid point. But the point with the self-perception, you can decide to reduce to the kinds of internal conversation the child or youth is having with themselves. So some of these things, they don't tell anyone. Some of it, maybe little hints of it might come up. Some of it could be limited, to be linked to standard of living poverty, and some of it could be like external to that. So the question I'm asking is, for instance, for yourself as youth growing up, do you think about what are you thinking about? What are the things you think about? And how do they kind of help you to kind of chart your path, maybe help you plan where you are going, maybe not plan where you are going? How does that influence your outlook on life? Those are the kind, so you can reflect on yourself to answer that question. Raisa, what are you thinking about? Does that resonate with you? What kind of conversations do you have with yourself?
Are we talking about poverty, right?
Pardon
Hello?
me?
Hello, are we talking about poverty, right?
Yes, child self-perception poverty.
Oh, child self-perception. I don't know what it means, but what
Okay, I
comes to
think,
my mind, I am thinking of. Hello? Sorry, my
yes.
Wi-Fi is really bad. Hello?
Can you type into the chat then?
Yeah, so what I'm thinking is a child. Okay.
For Rita, can I maybe clarify for the group a little bit to see if we can connect with that second point a little bit closer? Is that okay?
For sure.
That's cool. Yeah, for everyone who was in the session, which is most of you, who were in the session before, when we're looking at perception, are you guys remembering the conversations we had before around even identity? Remember how we were looking at our community and then we said what we thought, what it meant to be Congolese, what it meant to be Black, what it meant to be African. And then we took a look at other things. We saw what the government thought that those things meant. So we had our own kind of image of what it was for us, what it meant for us to be kind of like in our own skin. We took a look at what the government kind of takes a look to see how our groups are kind of placed in there. So if you guys remember that conversation and help tie it in more, I know that was a conversation rooted in identity, but if you guys think through that lens there, it can help us see what a standard kind of or the distinction between the standard of living kind of just in that sense, and then what our perception of that is. Let me pick on Vincent. Do you remember those conversations there? Is Vince around?
I don't know.
What about Junior?
Yeah, I'm around. My Wi-Fi is kind of cutting out. I kind of cut halfway through your question. Can you say what you were saying one more time?
When we had that conversation just around identity, and we had that discussion around like how you see yourself as being like Congolese and how other people view like Congolese. Do you remember that discussion there?
Yeah, I remember that.
Remember that. Now replace the identity and put poverty in there. So then for you, in terms of like how you see a poverty like played out like in yourself and how like the world kind of defines poverty. Do you see, would you be able to speak on that a little bit? So before in the conversation we were having, we were saying that people, we took a positive spin on it. We said people might see Congolese as being refugees, being individuals who come here later. We don't have much of a community. We're not necessarily connected to resources well. We remember that conversation there. Now, instead of us rooting it in just Congo, if we say just poverty, generally poverty, what are some of the things that you say are kind of like just outside of you that the world kind of defines and the way that you see like limitations even?
Yeah. So I feel like the way the world sees poverty is like if someone is poor, for example, they're often viewed as lazy, or like sometimes people like to use the word bum or things like that. And it's not always necessarily that. And people can be put in situations where they're forced into that type of thing. But like the way the world views it is as like, oh, like some people really do need help, and some people, it's not always their fault, you know. And like based on a lot of things happening in the world, anyone can be poor. Like anyone can be put in that situation. And but like as individually, as myself, like the way I view poverty, I would say it's more so like the position that you are put in. Like let's say you get laid off because of COVID, for example, and you lose your house, for example, and you can go homeless. So that's how I see it.
Okay. I like how you said something about lazy. So you are walking around and you are kind of labeled as poor, and then the child gets keep on hearing, well, poor people are lazy, poor people are lazy, poor people are lazy. The connection there is that is the conversation you begin to have with yourself. Well, my parents are poor because they are lazy, and I guess I am the kid of lazy people, so I am lazy too. And then that becomes the image of yourself, and that becomes the driving force of where you go and how you perceive yourself and how you perceive the world. So even if you are not a lazy person, in your mind, that is the message that is seeping through because, well, poor people are lazy. And so it is a bad image to have. So the idea here is that if you are a child or youth and most of your conversations with yourself are negative or undermining your humanity, then we can be safely saying that there is a deprivation going on over there. That is not a normal situation. You should not be having that kind of conversation. Or you can say, well, a teacher can be telling you at school, well, you aren't good at math. You aren't good at math. And then what you do is that becomes your conversation with yourself. I am not good at math. So you wouldn't even try because you've been told you aren't good at math. And that is the idea of the self-perception poverty. So people tell you things, you absorb things from your society, and that becomes the lens through which you see yourself. And it has an impact on where children are going, how they choose, where they even think they are entitled to go to. So now that we have said all of these things, I'm still going to open it up and say, how does this over here that we have just said between my Ike and myself, how does that play out in your head? What kinds of conversations do you have with yourself? Doesn't have to be negative or positive. Just what is the driving conversation you have with yourself? Junior, seems like you want to put on your camera. Hey, I said,
Sorry?
like, unmute yourself. I say, seems like you want to say something. What kinds of conversations do you have with yourself?
Like in terms of like poverty with me?
It doesn't have to be poverty. You can just generally, what is the dominant conversation you have with yourself?
About poverty in general?
It doesn't have to be about poverty. So it can be things you are good at or things you are not good at. What do you tell yourself?
In terms of myself, I always try to motivate. I hold myself to a higher standard. Like, let's say when I have something to be done, I always like to remind myself I have something to like do. And like in terms of work, or if I gotta wake up early, anything like that, like it's always about like motivation. And it's true, like when you talk in a certain way, you're gonna start feeling that way. Or when that is around you, like the conversation, if you're constantly being called like let's say like lazy, we were using lazy before as an example. If you're constantly being called lazy, sometimes you start to embody that, and you also become lazy. But if you have people around you that are motivating you, and you're motivating yourself as well, like you can do anything. You can put your mind to anything you want, and you can be successful if you have people around you who are supporting you.
Sounds good. Jolie, What conversations do you have with yourself? Actually, let me take it back. How did you decide to become a nurse?
My parents suggested that because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted a career that was fulfilling and something that I would be able to like serve other people and like just a rewarding professional career that I wanted. But I just wasn't sure exactly what. So my parents helped me with that.
Okay, so now dial back and just think about if your parents were not there and speculate what could have happened.
If my parents didn't suggest it?
Yes.
I probably would have done like a career. I still would have picked a career in healthcare just because I think I was just always interested in biology. So I think that's why I kind of gravitated towards like health and science and stuff like that.
Perfect. Now you see how you end up in biology. She always gravitated towards biology. So in her mind's eye, she always saw herself as some kind of biologist, right? And that is what we are talking about when it comes to that self-perception. You give yourself permission to dream big and think big and do all of these things and things you can just reach to the stars. Unfortunately, not all children have that opportunity. Some of it is just like we were saying, just lack of exposure. Some of it is the messaging that you get. Some of it is just, yourself, even if people are talking, you're not really interested. There's a whole lot of circumstances that can feed into the way a person or a child or a youth is thinking about themselves. The bigger point here is that down the line, whether we are thinking negative or positive, there are going to be consequences on our lives. And so from our point of view, if a child is thinking, low things or absorbing low things, is not being encouraged to go in a positive direction or blaming themselves for everything that happens, that is setting them up for failure. And that is where the poverty comes in, because they don't have that well-being in their mind. I think it was Jacob earlier who was talking about, just having a healthy mind. That is what this one is talking about over here. The government doesn't talk about that. The fact that you could be actually having a conversation with yourself. It is rather, well, you are living in a poor environment. Let's take you out of that environment. And then it becomes, well, I don't have my parents because I have been bad. I don't deserve parents. I don't. So that negative messaging begins to kick in. And when that negative messaging kicks in and it is not interrupted and corrected, down the line, that child has a higher risk of living in material poverty. And that is what we don't want to be happening to any child. But then again, if you are a racialized kid, navigating systems that kind of are stacked up against you, it is very easy to just end up in this particular place. Oh, black boys are good at basketball. All right. And so after that, chemistry doesn't matter, right? But then is that right? And that is the larger picture that we want to talk about over here. So again, think about these things because there is an assignment coming down the line. Now, let us talk about relationship poverty. And this is, I think, much more, it will have much more resonance with you guys because we are just talking about the people around you. How do you relate with them? Do you relate to them properly, positively, or are all of those relationships just broken down? I'm not getting on well with my dad. I'm not getting on well with my sister. I am not getting on well with my teacher. I'm not getting on well with everybody, and the world doesn't like me. And you'll be shocked to hear the number of children that actually think like that. And so it does have impacts going happening, and that is what we are calling the relationship poverty. So yes, you're a person running around. You can be from an upper middle class home as a, you are not living financial poverty, but then relationship wise, you could be very severely impoverished. And our work has very many examples of that. I'm looking at the time here, but then I'll quickly just summarize. There was a child that, it's my favorite example. It is dark and sad, but I like to use it. She was living in Strathcona. You know where Strathcona is, right? Near Aspen, very rich neighborhood. And she ended up homeless and ended up at the Boys and Girls Club. What happened? Her dad was being incestuous towards her. So if you don't know what incestuous means, he was wanting to have sexual relations with her. And she was complaining to her mom, and her mom was not hearing any of it. She's like, that is not possible. Your dad can't do that. You are being disrespectful. And it is because he's your stepdad. You just want to give him a bad name in front of me. And she would not believe her own daughter. So she just ran out of the house and ended up on the street. Boys and Girls Club is where she was able to recover. So that is extreme, but it is also poignant of an example that when your relationships are kind of broken down, the chance that as a child or youth, you are going to end up wallowing in some kind of situation connected to poverty is very high, and we don't want that. So again, keep it in the back of your mind. What does that mean for me? What does that mean for the people I know? Structural poverty is one that actually is outside of the personal. So we've been talking about systems quite a bit over here. Daniel was talking about systems. I think I talked about systems a little bit. Everybody knows about systems. But then this is where we are looking for help from our institutions. So healthcare system, educational system, transit system, some kind of help with legal aid, all of those things, but then we are not getting that help. Basically, the societal systems are dropping the ball on the children. And so you aren't able to thrive, you aren't able to get what you need to develop properly. Take note of this particular one over here, because as we progress in our project, we will be coming back to the ways in which our systems and structures are making our lives poor or poorer. So again, just think about it. Does this resonate with me? I'll go back to the next, I'll go forward to the next slide for us to have a discussion about that. But I just wanted to draw your attention to this word called functionings. And functionings is actually one of the ways that is associated with the capabilities idea of poverty. And when we are talking about functioning, we are talking about the desire to do and actually being able to do what you desire. Right. So when you are thinking about, like right now, we are having an online work class. Some people might desire to do this, and their mom will say, you are not going, hands down, situation ended. That is a problem. Or you want to go, we need to pay money. Well, I don't have money to do it, so I don't attend. So I'm just drawing this to your attention again as something to chew on. By the way, I'll share this with Ashley, and then she can share it with you also. You can go back and refer to the slide. What are some of the things you want or desire to do that you are not able to do now? And it can be anything. If you can even write 10 of them, write them down. Youth, are you listening? It is something to chew on. What are the things you desire to do that you are not able to do now? Write them down as many as you can. And then as we go along, we can categorize them for you. But now let us take your ideas. So for relationship capital poverty, look at your own life. You don't have to disclose any details, and you don't have to be negative. Does this resonate? When you hear something about relationship capital poverty, would you go, yeah, or that is just an idea that is kind of new agey? Where are you on that scale? Who's going first? Oh, I think Daniel wants to say something.
Are we supposed to type our ideas, or are we supposed to say it out loud? I was gonna just say it before I leave.
You can type them in the chat. Just type them, and in case you curate them. That's fine. Yeah, because I know it's like 7 o'clock. Even we have to wrap up. This is actually the last thing we are doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just type your ideas. And for the rest of us, just another 10 minutes or so will be done. Just one slide left. Iketi, did you see anything in the chat?
Not yet.
Okay.
Jolie, would it be faster for you to say it? Because Jolie has just said she's got a meeting at 7.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just typing it, but it looks like it's gonna take a long time to type it. Things that I would want to do that I don't have the chance to do is like traveling because of money, obviously. I would also like to buy a house, but that's not a possibility right now because I have to pay off my student loans first. So yeah, those are the 2 things that I would actually like to do.
Okay, you can add on to the list if as we go along. So I understand that you need to leave, but as I said, we'll be sharing the slides with you all. So you can go back, refer to them, and get back to us if you have any questions. Yes. Thank you for coming. Hopefully you'll be here for the next session.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah.
See you guys.
Yeah, enjoy your meeting. So again, let's return to our relationship capital poverty, structural capital poverty. Do these have any resonance with you? Maybe you are wanting to access a particular system and it just was not working. You are able to share that, for instance. And if the youth are not forthcoming, the rest of us can chip in, maybe just to give them examples. Maybe the experience level has not gone to that extent yet, so it's just hard to connect. So yeah. Do you want to lead us off with the structure bit?
I'm sorry, what was the question? Is this?
I said, do you want to share an opinion on either the relationship capital poverty or the structural capital poverty, any of them? Because I feel like our youth are kind of a bit like, what is going on? So they need maybe some example.
Okay. Yeah. So I think the example of relationship capital. Hold on, I'm gonna find. Am I echoing?
Yes.
Can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sounds good. I really like the concept of relationship capital. It's really important for us, like what we're trying to do here in terms of like building a community, getting to know each other, getting to know the different ways we can connect with one another, the different similar struggles we have, what it really means to live in this area and to really thrive. I really think that's a dimension of health, and that's just a dimension of not just surviving, but really living good that we don't really look at. Also, sometimes just having money, being able to travel and do everything that you want is what we kind of strive for. But in the areas that really African culture can be rich or Black culture can be rich traditionally was in this relationship capital kind of bucket. And for us to value that and to know that it's important and sought after, I think it's really cool to have that weaved in. I know that when we talk about structural capital poverty, I think that's like maybe the capital to be able to access like systems and structures there and being able to get into that. I think that there is still a connection, like when that relationship capital is really strong, when we can leverage that, it does open doors as well into a shifting things into systems and stuff. And so yeah, that's what I thought was kind of exciting. And maybe since I got tagged by Rita, I'm gonna tag Vincent, who was in the bathroom when I called him before. So I really want Vince's opinion about all these things. I know we're putting out a lot of buzzwords out there. These are all good things. I remember we were talking about our toolkit before, like our personal toolkit to work as community organizers. So just wanted to see from Vince, like, how do you see the interplay between relationship capital and structural capital, or the things we were talking about before, community and systems, or however you want to dice it?
Actually, Vince, when you finish, tag someone else.
All right, cool. So when I think of like relationship capital, like poverty, I think like what people have right now, and a lot of people do take it for granted, because in a lot of situations, once you lose all your friendships and your relationships with people, that's when it starts going down the wrong path, and people do end up in poverty and things of that sort. So I feel like that's a really important, like, relationships are very important assets for everyone. And then structural capital poverty, I would say, like, what people want and stuff, like, everyone wants to be successful, but also it always comes with lots of dedication and lots of hard work. So, like, it's easier to say something, it's harder to do it. So, but everyone has to put their mind towards something, and eventually you have to figure out what you want in life. So it's like you just got to get it together and stuff. And
Could you tell Caroline? We haven't heard from Caroline all evening. My apologies, Caroline. I
And
totally
Cero
just.
tagged Jacob. I saw Jacob's hand's been up for a little while there. I don't know if anybody noticed that. Sorry. And I'll mute myself.
It's fine. I had a question a long time ago. It's fine. I'm good.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I kind of
Jacob,
forget it now.
Yes, Caroline, could you please weigh in? I feel like I totally just went on my blind side, and I just feel bad that you haven't said anything.
No, that's okay. It's a little late here. So the reason why I'm running, I would have stayed, but I just got a call from work. And so that's why I just said I had to run quickly. Possible COVID situation. So I'll have to, yeah. Give me a sec.
Okay. Jacob, did your question come back to you?
What was I talking about? Oh yeah, so these are all, from what I understand, and I'm just clarifying here, these are all factors that would contribute to poverty. That's correct?
Yes.
Like, these are all factors, but structural, that's the one that I didn't quite understand. Structural capital poverty, that's what I still don't understand that one.
Okay, yeah, I can try to unpack it for you. So I like the way you put it. I think are contributing factors to poverty. The only thing I would add in that is a multi-dimensional experience of poverty. So it is not about lack of money, but then lack of all of these things. And when you put all of those things together, it just makes the experience of poverty just so much more deeper. So that's the only clarification I'll add in there. But let me try to unpack the structural capital poverty for you. So that is where we are talking about our systems and our structures of societies. When I say systems and structures of our society, so the healthcare system, it is there as an obligation from the government to the people. An educational system is there as an obligation from the government to the people. A transit system is there as an obligation from the government to the system, to the people. Our social welfare system is there to serve us when we are down on our luck. Those are all, and there are, of course, several examples. Those are all things that are outside of a family's capacity to totally provide for their children. So even if I am super good at math, it's possible I suck at geography. So then I can't teach my child social studies. I take them to school and that is flagged. But if they go to school and the experience of school is not interesting for the child, we are going to say that child is experiencing an education-related poverty. So the educational system is failing the child, and so they are going to be experiencing less than well-being is what the larger points are. Let's say, actually, let me give an example of a child that was needing glasses. They were getting blind. They were born and they were losing their sight. And when they were trying to get help from AHS, which is kind of sad, at a point she was legally blind. So it means that legally she's declared blind, she can't see. Their parents were saying, what can we do to help our child participate in grade 1 and participate in grade 2? And the assessment that came back from AHS to the parents were that the child was not factually blind. And so they could not begin to provide Braille or all of the assistance that they could give to the child if they could not see. So now the child is going to school and they cannot see anything in the school, and they were just falling behind. That is another example of the healthcare system dropping the ball and the child falling back in school, and the parents can't help the child because they don't have the resources and the capacity. Does that help you, Jacob?
Yeah, that's actually a really good example. That does make sense. Yeah.
Okay. So again, what I want us to do here is just begin to think about yourself, think about yourself. How do these things over here resonate with you? That is the point of my question. And I said I'll share this one with you, but try to plot yourself. And don't share it with anyone at this time. Just plot yourself. Standard of living, where am I at? Do I have all of the basic needs I need? Am I living a sufficiently comfortable life? If you are looking at self-perception, what are my thoughts like? Are they predominantly negative, or are my thoughts predominantly positive? Chart those ones. If you even have the time, write the details of what your thoughts are. Try to reflect on the status of your relationships. What are they like? And if they're impacting you, reflect on those and just see this as kind of a journal and just keep it. Because most of you are in school, be looking at the structural bit. How is my experience in school like? If you are beginning, if you are already working, what does that look like? If I am experiencing some healthcare issues, what does that look like? Try to plot yourself over here. And as I'm saying, some of you may be totally fine. You don't have any problems. That is good. But you can choose to reflect about someone, or if you really just can't feel a part, don't do it. It is totally fine. If you are not poor, there's no reason why we should force you to be poor. Basically, is the point. The last thing
we almost did it. Let's work together. Okay?
Yeah. The last thing I just want to say is that you do have my email address, and you do have Nketi's email address. There are a whole lot of other people on the call with us. Reach out as youth participants and go, now that I have the PowerPoint, this particular point, I don't quite understand it. Can I chat with you? Or can you explain to me on email what this means? That is what these sessions are for. So even though we are concluding this, it is not the end of it. Let's continue the conversation. So keep that as your homework. Before we go, youth participants, what do you want to be comment as your big takeaway before we go? Any comment? It doesn't have to be specific to, I don't know, just anything that is resonating with you before we go.
Yeah, I had no idea that structural poverty was such a thing, to be honest. I didn't realize that was a issue. So I thought that was pretty interesting to learn about.
Okay. Short and sweet, I like that. Benita, if you are still there, something very short so we can all run. It's running late.
Yeah. What's the question again? Sorry.
Anything, just a general comment before we go about what you learned or what we discussed.
No, I don't really have anything for now
it's
today,
fine.
to be honest.
That's okay. Junior. Yeah, Nketi, I saw your text message. Yeah, so yeah, your duties are over. We are all leaving.
I was waiting for my permission to leave.
I'll be the last one standing.
All
yeah,
right.
but I'll collect the notes from you later on.
Okay.
Junior.
I enjoyed how we explored the dimensions of poverty and how it can happen, also the different, should I say, the different aspects of poverty, and how you think of yourself as a person, and how it can lead to that.
Okay, sounds good. Who is there? Laura? Yeah.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the session too, and the way we learned about poverty and learning everyone else's perspective of how poverty is, and yeah, that's what I really enjoy. I enjoy the
For
overtake
sure.
of everything. Yeah.
Well, it means your enthusiasm level is high. That's what we want. Raisa, if your audio is not failing you, can you share your opinion? It doesn't have to be good. It doesn't. Yeah. It could
Yeah.
be anything.
Yeah. So I was gonna say, I like how, so we don't all live the same life, but there are many things that we can relate to when it comes to this topic. And yeah, I really enjoy learning it, especially since I don't think I got to learn this topic at school. So it was really interesting for me. Yeah.
Interesting you make the connection to school. Yeah, when we were putting this idea together, we were thinking, well, we want to give our Black youth, or the youth that will be in this program, to include Jacob, something that gives you a leg up, that gives you an advantage in terms of knowledge and expertise above those who aren't coming. So I'm glad you are making that connection yourself. And so for everyone, this is some of the realization of the dream that we did have, that you'd have something extra that somebody else does not have. Who is left that I haven't called on before we finally go? Maybe we'll take a few concluding comments from Ike. So Ike, be on standby. Who is left I haven't called? Jacob has spoken, Benita has spoken, Raisa has spoken, Vincent. I think everyone has gone, right, Ike?
Sorry, guys, just had to step out quickly there. Can you guys hear me?
Yes. I was
Okay,
just
sorry.
asking, all of the youth have shared an opinion, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I believe
then
so. Sorry, I had to step out quickly there. So I stepped. I'm not sure if all the youth have gone.
Laurent, Vincent, Raisa, Benita, Jacob. Is who? Oh no, this is Ashley. So that's Ashley not there. I feel like everyone has sort of shared an opinion. So for youth participants, like I said, we'll be sending this. Actually, Ashley has it, so she can share it with you now. To go over the material and just kind of reflect on yourself. You don't have to do it now. Just think about yourself and kind of complete this one over here. And remember that whole idea of participation. Where do you stand? So now that you have this framework, you can go back and evaluate your number for participation and see how you are doing. Ike, if you don't mind, could you bring us to a close and we can regroup in 2 weeks?
Yeah, so I think it was a good first session. I think I'm encouraged with everyone that came through. I think we have to do a better job of reaching out to everyone before making sure everyone is caught up. We're starting on time. We understand that it's exam week and everything like that, so we can give ourselves a little bit of a pass. But I do want us to reset, take some pride in what we're doing here. We're learning some pretty cool stuff, and these are experts in the field. So I think we can all be encouraged with where this is going. You guys will be hearing more and more from us about what we'll be doing on our off weeks and everything. And then as we plan for the sessions, we'll give you a heads up about what we're going to be discussing, so you guys are prepped to come through and discuss things. But overall, I think a really encouraging first session, and look forward for the next one in 2 weeks.
Yeah, echo everything that you said. The engagement level is very high, and I'm also very glad for what we are doing here. We just hope next time more people come. But yes, Ike and your team, good job on bringing out some youth to have a conversation with us. Okay, bye everyone. And really, the offer, yeah, and the offer really stands. Reach out to us. You know where to find us, and ask us questions, because this is in no way, shape, or form the end of the conversation. So don't be shy. Okay, good night, everyone.